The file folder was 4 inches thick, held together with an elastic band that had been stretched so many times it had gone pale. Tavian Osei-Mensah set it on the kitchen table at 3:47 in the morning and did not sit down. He stood there reading. His mother had left the overhead light on when she went to bed, the one above the stove that flickered every few seconds, and he read by that. He had been doing this for 11 days, not sleeping much, eating when someone put something in front of him, reading everything his grandmother had ever signed, every document she had ever been handed, every lease and amendment and renewal going back to 1987. His grandmother, Odile Rose, everyone called her Rose, had lived in the same apartment on Rue des Arables in Gatineau for 31 years. 3 bedrooms, 2nd floor. A balcony that looked out over the parking lot, where she kept a plastic lawn chair and 3 tomato plants in coffee tins. She had raised 2 daughters there, watched 4 grandchildren learn to walk in that hallway, kept a calendar on the wall by the telephone with every birthday circled in red marker. She was 81 now, and a company called Havelock Property Group had spent the past 8 months trying to get her out. Not illegally, that was the thing. Everything Havelock did was done with paperwork and registered letters. And a lawyer named Preston Marlowe, who had been practicing real estate and corporate law in Ottawa for 26 years, and who had a reputation in certain circles for being very good at making things look clean. Tavian was 23 years old. He had a diploma in business administration from Algonquin College, a job at a print shop on Bank Street that paid him $16 an hour, and no legal training of any kind. He also had the file folder, and 11 days of 4 a.m. reading and a meeting at the Havelock offices in 9 hours. He turned a page. The stove light flickered. He kept reading. The thing about Rose's building was that it sat on a lot that had become, over the past decade, suddenly worth a great deal of money. A light rail station had opened 3 blocks away. A mixed-use development had gone in across the street. The neighborhood, which had been quiet and working class and full of families who had lived there a long time, was becoming something else. Something with exposed brick and cold brew coffee and asking prices that bore no relationship to anything Tavian's family had ever known. Havelock had purchased the building 14 months ago. Within 60 days, they had issued renovation notices to every tenant. The notices were professionally written, technically compliant with the Residential Tenancies Act, and designed, Tavian had come to understand, to make long-term, low-income tenants feel that their departure was not just inevitable, but practically already arranged. Most of the tenants had left. A woman named Gertrude, who had been on the 3rd floor for 20 years, moved in with her son in Canada. An older couple from the 4th floor. Tavian never knew their last name, only that the man always wore a Habs cap, had gone to a senior's residence in Aylmer. One by one, the apartments had emptied. Rose had not moved. She had called Tavian in February, her voice careful and even, and said she had received some papers she didn't entirely understand, and would he mind having a look. He had driven over on a Sunday afternoon, expecting to spend an hour. He had stayed until midnight. He had gone back the next weekend, and the one after that, he had started making phone calls. He had found legal aid resources online. He had called 2 tenant advocacy organizations, one of which had given him a 40-minute consultation with a paralegal named Simone, who had walked him through the relevant sections of the act and told him, very kindly, that Rose's situation was difficult but not hopeless. Difficult but not hopeless. That had been 6 weeks ago. Now Havelock had filed a formal application with the landlord and tenant board, and Preston Marlowe had sent a letter, smooth, almost cordial, requesting a pre-hearing meeting to discuss the matter before it went any further. Tavian had accepted. His mother thought he was making a mistake. She had said so, quietly, while washing dishes after dinner 2 nights ago. He's been doing this for 30 years, Tav. He knows every angle. She had not said, "You are 23 and you work at a print shop." She had not needed to. Tavian had dried a bowl and set it in the cupboard and said, "I know. I've read the angles." The Havelock offices were on the 14th floor of a glass tower near the Rideau Center. The lobby had a marble floor and a security desk, and a kind of pressurized quiet that Tavian associated with places that expected you to feel small before you got anywhere near the elevator. He wore a gray blazer he had borrowed from his cousin Damien, who was broader in the shoulders, which meant the blazer fit a little loose. He was carrying a messenger bag. Inside the bag was the file folder, a yellow legal pad, 2 pens, and a printed summary he had written himself, 7 pages, organized by section number. The receptionist looked up when he came in. "I'm here for the 9:30, Tavian said. Osei-Mensah, regarding the Rue de Arablo property." She checked her screen. There was a pause that lasted perhaps half a second longer than necessary. "I'll let Mr. Marlowe's assistant know," she said. He sat down in one of the chairs near the window. Outside, the city looked clear and cold, the kind of March morning that promises nothing. He opened his legal pad and reviewed the first page of his notes. Then he closed it. He had read everything. He was ready. Preston Marlowe came to get him personally, which Tavian had not expected. He was a tall man, silver-haired, with the kind of settled, unhurried manner that comes from decades of being the most knowledgeable person in whatever room he enters. He shook Tavian's hand, a practiced handshake, calibrated, and smiled in the way that people smile when they are being professionally gracious to someone they do not consider a serious obstacle. "Mr. Osei-Mensah," he said, "thank you for coming in." "Thank you for the meeting," Tavian said. They walked down a hallway with framed architectural renderings on the walls. Havelock developments, gleaming and clean, full of people who looked extremely comfortable. A boardroom at the end. A long table, 6 chairs, a tray of water and coffee that no one had touched. Marlowe had brought a junior associate, a woman in her 30s named Chantel, who carried a laptop and a leather portfolio, and who sat to his left and opened the portfolio without looking at Tavian. Tavian sat across from them, set his bag on the floor, and put the legal pad on the table. Marlowe poured himself a coffee. He did not offer one to Tavian. This was not an accident. "I'll get right to it," Marlowe said, settling back. "My client has been more than patient with your grandmother's situation. The renovation work they have planned is substantial. Code compliance, structural upgrades, and the delay in vacant possession has caused real scheduling complications. That said, Havelock is prepared to offer an enhanced relocation package, considerably more generous than what the Act requires." He named a figure. Tavian wrote it down on his legal pad. "That's in addition to the standard 3 months' rent," Marlowe continued, "and they're prepared to provide a letter of reference for any future tenancy application. Given Mrs. He glanced at the file in front of him. "Given your grandmother's age and income situation, that's not nothing." Tavian looked at the number he had written. Then he looked up. "The N13, he said, "the notice for renovation." Marlowe's expression did not change. "That's correct. It was served on October 14th. "I believe so. Yes." "The work description attached to it," Tavian said, "lists replacement of the building's electrical panel, upgrading of the plumbing stack, and structural repairs to the south-facing exterior wall." He opened his folder and removed a document. "I requested the building permit application through the city. The permit was filed on September 22nd, 3 weeks before the N13 was issued." Chantel looked up from her laptop for the first time. "The permit application," Tavian continued, "lists the scope of work as electrical panel replacement and plumbing upgrades. It does not mention structural repairs to the south wall." He set the permit application on the table face up. "The N13 includes work that wasn't in the permit." A silence settled into the room. Marlowe reached forward and picked up the document. He looked at it for a moment. His face remained professional, but something behind the professionalism shifted, the way a current shifts under still water. "Renovation notices can reference anticipated work," he said. "It's not unusual for the scope to evolve during the permit process." "I understand that," Tavian said. "But Section 73 of the Act requires that the work be described with reasonable specificity, and that the description be consistent with any municipal permits filed in connection with the same property. The board has cited that section in 4 decisions in the past 18 months. He turned 3 pages in his folder and set a printed copy of one of those decisions on the table. Then another. Then a third. The board found in each case that a material inconsistency between the permit scope and the notice description invalidates the N13. Marlowe set down the permit application. He picked up the first board decision. Chantel was now typing something. Tavian waited. "These are," Marlowe began. "The case numbers are on the top right," Tavian said. "All 3 are from Ontario, 2 from the eastern region." Another silence. Marlowe set the decision down. He looked at Tavian with a different expression now, not the gracious one from the hallway, not hostile, exactly, something more like reassessment. "Where did you study law?" he said. "I didn't," Tavian said. "I studied business. I work at a print shop." No one said anything. I've also been talking to a paralegal who works with the tenant advocacy clinic on Elgin Street, Tavian said. She thinks the application has a reasonable chance of being dismissed at the preliminary stage. I'm not here because I think Havelock is acting in obvious bad faith. I think they hired you and you filed documents that looked right and probably are right 90% of the time. I'm here because this particular case has a specific problem in the paperwork, and I wanted to give everyone the chance to resolve it before we go to the board. Marlowe looked at him for a long moment. Then he picked up his coffee, seemed to think better of it, and set it back down. What is your grandmother looking for? He said. She wants to stay, Tavian said. If the renovations are genuinely necessary, she's willing to discuss a temporary relocation and guaranteed right of return at the same rent. In writing, registered. If Havelock's actual intention is to vacate the building and not bring her back, which is permitted under the Act under specific conditions that I don't believe are satisfied here, then we'll need to talk about a different set of remedies. You've been busy, Marlowe said. His tone had changed. It had not become warmer, exactly, but it had become level. As if he were now speaking to someone in the room rather than someone being managed. She's 81, Tavian said. She's been in that apartment since before I was born. I had time. They did not resolve everything that morning. These things do not resolve in a single morning, no matter how well you have done your reading. Marlowe asked for 2 weeks to consult with his client. Tavian said that was fine. They shook hands again in the hallway. A different handshake this time, Tavian thought, though maybe that was just him. And he took the elevator down to the marble lobby and walked out into the cold March air. He stood on the sidewalk for a moment with his hands in his pockets. His phone buzzed. His mother. How did it go? He thought about how to answer that. He typed, "Okay, I think okay." Then he put the phone in his pocket and started walking toward the bus stop. 3 weeks later, he got a call from Chantel, the associate, not from Marlowe. She spoke in the careful, even tone of someone who had been told to be careful and even. Havelock was prepared to withdraw the N13 application, she said, and to engage in a formal mediation regarding the scope of any future renovation notices, with a tenant representative present. They were also prepared to offer Rose a 10-year lease renewal at a rent increase capped at provincial guideline rates, with a clause guaranteeing right of return at equivalent rent in the event of any future legitimate renovation displacement. Tavian was sitting in the break room at the print shop when the call came. There was a half-eaten sandwich in front of him and ink on his left thumb. He thanked Chantel. He told her he would review the proposed terms and get back to her. He hung up, then he called Rose. She picked up on the second ring, the way she always did, like she had been waiting near the phone. "It's Tav," he said. "I have some news," he heard her breathe. "Good news," she said. "I think so," he said. "Yeah, I think so." There was a pause on the line. He could hear in the background the sound of the television she kept on low in the afternoons, some talk show, the soft applause of a studio audience. He had heard that sound his entire life, sitting in her kitchen after school, doing homework at the same table where he had read those files at 3 a.m. "Your grandfather would have liked you," Rose said. "He was stubborn like that, too." Tavian laughed. "I'll take that. You should eat more," she said. "You look thin." "I just had a sandwich." "A whole one?" He looked at the half-eaten sandwich. "Yes," he said. He did not tell many people the details. His mother knew. Damien got his blazer back with a dry cleaning receipt tucked into the pocket. The paralegal from the advocacy clinic, her name was Fatou, sent him a message that said "well done," seriously, and he saved it. At the print shop, nobody knew anything about any of it. He ran the laminator and cut banners and helped a woman design a poster for her daughter's grad party, and life went on the way it does, without ceremony. But Rose's tomato plants went back out on the balcony in May. He saw them when he came over for Sunday dinner. 3 coffee tins, new seedlings, the same plastic chair, and he did not say anything about them. He just noticed. Sometimes the most important thing that happens in a person's life is not the moment in the boardroom, or the phone call, or the letter. Sometimes it is the tomato plants going back on the balcony. The sign that something that was nearly lost is still there. That is what it means to protect something. Not to win dramatically. To make sure, when spring comes, there is still somewhere to put the coffee tins.